The cold blue sky of Thalzira's third moon stretched endlessly over a silent battlefield. The dust had settled, the weapons had gone quiet, and only the dead remained. In the middle of the ruined command outpost stood Captain Queen Arvalin. Tall and proud, her armor scratched and burned, but her eyes sharp as ever. She was not born like others, she was made. The Zireth Empire created her to lead, to conquer, to never doubt. Her bones were stronger than steel. Her blood could survive poison. Her heart, they said, had no room for fear or kindness. But now, she was alone. The mission had failed. The humans, those strange, emotional creatures, had outmaneuvered her. Her squad was destroyed. Her backup had never arrived. And now, she stood in the wreckage, surrounded by silence. Then she heard the sound of footsteps. Careful, slow, deliberate. She turned, raising her energy blade, ready to fight to the death. But it wasn't a squad. It was one human, one soldier. He wasn't in full battle armor. Just a dusty old field jacket, a sidearm, and a calm look on his face. He looked ordinary, thin, brown-haired, a small scar across one cheek. No medals, no symbols of rank. And yet he walked toward her like she wasn't the most dangerous creature on the moon. She frowned. "Where is your army?" The man shrugged. "Don't need one. Just came to see who was still breathing." She raised her blade. "You came to die, then?" "No," he said. "I came to talk." This confused her. Talking was for diplomats, not warriors, and she was no diplomat, but something in his voice, calm, low, not mocking, made her pause. "Who are you?" she asked. He gave a slight smile. "Sergeant Elias Reed, Earth Forces. You?" "Captain Queen Arvalin," she said, lifting her chin with pride. "Zirith Assault Commander, Class Omega." Elias nodded as if she had just said she was a school teacher. "You're a long way from home, Captain Queen." "I do not fall," she said sharply, "even in defeat." "Good," he replied, and without waiting for her permission, he sat on a piece of broken metal nearby. This made her nervous. No one had ever been so casual in her presence. Back in the Zireth Empire, even her generals knelt when they spoke to her. She had never known a moment of simple conversation. "Why aren't you afraid of me?" she asked. "I've fought Zireth before," Elias said. "Some of you scream, some cry, some die quietly. But you're still standing. That's impressive." She studied him carefully. His words were not clever tricks. He wasn't trying to insult or flatter her. "You admire me?" she asked slowly. Elias gave a soft chuckle. "Let's say I respect what you've been through." For a few moments, silence fell again. Then Arvalin lowered her blade just a little. She had been trained to kill humans without hesitation, but this one made her feel curious. After a while, she asked, "Are you going to take me prisoner?" Elias looked up at the sky. "Not yet. No ships coming for a few days. My squad pulled out. I stayed behind to scan the wreckage. Guess fate brought us here." "Fate is a weak concept," she said firmly. "Maybe," he said, "but sometimes it gives second chances." She frowned again. "I am a weapon. I don't get chances." "You don't have to be a weapon forever." That sentence struck her like a pulse blast. She didn't reply. He offered her a small metal container. "Water?" She hesitated. Then slowly she accepted. It was warm and tasted of minerals, but it soothed her throat. "No poison, no trick." "I don't understand you, Elias Reed," she said. "Your kind should hate me." "We've been at war for years," he said. "Hate's easy. Understanding is harder. But I've seen too much to think all Zireth are just monsters. No human has said that to me before. Maybe none of them stopped to look past the armor. Then he did something even stranger. He looked directly into her eyes and said, "You know, for someone who thinks she's just a weapon, you have a very human expression." Her breath caught for a moment. "What expression?" "Sadness," he said softly. "I do not feel sadness," she lied. "Sure you do," Elias said. "I've seen it before, in soldiers who've lost everything. I saw it in the mirror once after I lost my brother. War breaks everyone, even the strong." She turned away, unsure of what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like this, not her creators, not her soldiers, not even herself. The small shelter on the moon base was quiet. Only the soft hum of broken machines and the distant wind could be heard outside. Inside, Captain Queen Arvalin sat on a cold metal bench, staring at the wall. Her hands, strong and built for war, rested on her knees. Her armor had been removed, not by force. She had taken it off herself. It felt heavy now, not just in weight, but in meaning. Across the room, Sergeant Elias Reed checked a small cooking unit. The smell of heated rations filled the air. It wasn't pleasant, but it was warm, and Arvalin hadn't eaten since the battle. "You still don't trust me," Elias said without looking at her. "I trust no one," she answered quickly. "That's fair," he said, opening a packet and handing her a small tray. "But maybe you can try trusting the food. It's not poison, I swear." She took it without a word and stared at it. It was a simple meal. Protein strips, grains, and a slice of dried fruit. It smelled strange to her, but not unpleasant. Slowly, she took a bite. Her people were not trained to enjoy food. Eating was fuel, nothing more. But for some reason, this felt different. Maybe it was the warmth. Maybe it was the silence. Or maybe it was him. "You don't act like a soldier," she said between bites. Elias smiled. "I get that a lot. You speak gently. You offer kindness. These are not traits of a warrior." "I fight when I must," he replied. "But that doesn't mean I have to become something I hate." She raised her eyes to him. "You hate war?" "I hate what it does to people, what it did to me, what it's doing to you." She looked down at her food. His words felt like arrows, quiet but sharp. They struck places inside her she didn't know existed. "No one in my world speaks like that," she said quietly. "We are built to serve, to win, to obey." "You said you're a captain," Elias said. "Doesn't that mean you lead?" "I lead battles. I don't make choices, not real ones." Elias sat down across from her, resting his arms on the table. "You made one today," he said. "You could have killed me when we met. You didn't." She didn't answer. Instead, she asked, "Why do you treat me like this?" "Like what?" "Like a person." Elias looked at her for a moment before replying. "Because you are one." Silence filled the room again. No one had ever said that to her. Not her commanders, not her soldiers, not even herself. She had always been the weapon, the queen, the leader, never just someone. She looked at her reflection in a dark screen nearby. Her face was sharp, her eyes hard, her features made for war. Her skin was a soft, silver blue, with marks of rank running along her jawline. She had always been told she was too severe, too sharp, too cold. But Elias didn't seem to see that. He looked at her like she was whole. She asked suddenly, "Why do you think I'm beautiful?" "I'm ugly, human." Elias blinked, surprised by the question. She wasn't joking. She wasn't fishing for praise. She was genuinely confused. He leaned back in his seat and said, "You have a strength that's real, but you also have a softness beneath it. Most people hide behind armor. You carry yours like a second skin, but I can still see you." She shook her head slowly. "In my culture, beauty means perfection in combat. My face is marked with battle history. My body was made by science, not nature. Maybe that's why it's beautiful, Elias said gently. Because despite what they made you for, you're still capable of questioning it. You're not just their tool, you're you. She looked away, her jaw tight. I don't know who me is, she whispered. Then maybe, Elias said, that's the journey worth taking. For a moment, the old part of her, the warrior, the trained commander, wanted to reject everything he said. It was weak. It was soft. It was pointless. But the part of her that had survived the crash, that had chosen not to call for help, that had sat here and eaten human food and asked a human soldier about beauty, that part wanted to listen. Just then, the comm unit on the wall crackled. Elias walked over and tapped the screen. A voice came through. This is Command Base 6. All surviving personnel, report location. Rescue teams are en route. Hostile activity may still be present. Elias looked at Arvalin. You want me to tell them you're here? She stared at the wall for a long time. Then she asked, if you tell them, what will they do to me? Take you prisoner. Maybe study you, maybe trade you back. I'll be a trophy, she said. Or worse, a lab sample. I won't let that happen, Elias said. She raised an eyebrow. You're one soldier. What power do you have? He smiled again. Sometimes one soldier is enough. The air was thick with tension inside the small moon base. Outside, the silent stars watched as two very different lives prepared for a storm. Captain Queen Arvalin paced slowly. Her silver-blue skin reflected the dull light from the ceiling. Every step she took echoed in the cold room. She had never felt so uncertain. Sergeant Elias Reed sat calmly at a battered table, cleaning his sidearm. His brown eyes looked up at her only once. They are coming, Elias said quietly. Arvalin stopped and stared at him. The Zireth fleet? He nodded. The commanders are not happy about your absence. They sent ships to get you back. They will not leave without you, she clenched her fists. Then I will be their prisoner. No, Elias said firmly. Not if I can help it. Arvalin's sharp eyes narrowed. You? How will you stop a whole fleet? He smiled faintly. Not alone. She did not understand. What do you mean? She asked. Help is coming, Elias said, tapping the comm unit. Human forces heard the distress signal from our outpost. They are on their way. Arvalin's heart, if she had one like humans, might have skipped a beat. But she only nodded slowly. Their weapons, she said. Their numbers. We are outmatched. We fight smart, not just hard, Elias said. You taught me that. She looked away. I did not teach you anything. You did, he said, when you chose not to kill me. Their eyes met. In that moment, something unspoken passed between them. A spark of trust, fragile but real. Hours passed. The moon base was quiet, but outside, ships hummed and moved into position. Then the alarms blared. Contact! Shouted a voice from the control room. Elias and Arvalin ran toward the main hall. On the screens, Zireth warships filled the black sky. Their huge forms blocked out stars like dark shadows. They want her back, Elias said. Then we will. Fight, Arvalin replied. Her voice was cold and steady. She picked up her energy blade and helmet. Wait, Elias said. You don't have to. She paused. Why? She asked. Because this is your choice, he said. Not theirs. Her breath caught. She was not used to choice. Outside the base, the battle began. Energy beams lit the sky. Ships exploded in bright bursts, but the defenders fought with skill and courage. Arvalin moved among the human soldiers, like a shadow. She gave orders in a language they barely understood, but her commands saved lives. Elias watched her from the command center, heart pounding. She was no monster. She was a leader. She was a queen. In the middle of the fight, a Zereth shuttle landed near the base. From it, soldiers poured out, armed and ready. Arvalin stood before them, her energy blade glowing bright. "Leave now," she said, voice ringing with power. "This battle is not yours," the Zereth captain in charge sneered. "Return to your humans, traitor." "Not a traitor," Arvalin said. "A free being." She charged forward, cutting down the first wave of attackers with fierce skill. Elias joined her side by side. Together they fought like a single force. After what felt like hours, the Zereth retreated. The human forces cheered softly. Arvalin sank to her knees, breathing hard. Elias knelt beside her. "You did it," he said. She shook her head. "I did not win. The war is not over." "No," Elias agreed. "But today, you made a choice no one expected." She looked at him, her eyes softer now. "Why do you smile?" she asked. "Because," he said, "I believe in you." That night, in the quiet of the moon base, Arvalin stared at the stars. For the first time she wondered about the future, not as a weapon but as a person, and she smiled. The battle had left scars on the moon base, walls cracked, machines sparking, and a heavy silence that felt almost alive. Yet inside, Captain Queen Arvalin stood tall among the human soldiers. Her silver-blue skin glowed faintly under the eye. Dim lights, her energy blade sheathed at her side. Around her, humans moved with tired but determined faces. They had seen the fight. They had seen her fight. And now they looked to her not as a captive, but as a leader. Arvalin's sharp eyes scanned the room. "We cannot hold forever," she said quietly, voice steady. "The Zereth will return with greater force." Sergeant Elias Reed stepped forward, his brow furrowed. "Then we stand and fight. Together," the soldiers murmured agreement. Arvalin nodded. This was different from anything she had known before. A team, not just a command. She moved among them, giving orders, her voice calm but firm. "Walls need reinforcement here. Shields must stay active. Every entrance guarded." Her language was strange, but the humans adapted quickly, following her lead. Elias watched her from the side, admiration growing. "Your commands, they save lives," he said softly. She looked at him, the smallest smile touching her lips. "Thank you, human," she said. Outside, the broken moon was a battlefield. The Zereth fleet circled above like vultures, waiting. Arvalin had studied their movements carefully. She knew their patterns. She had once been one of them. Now, she was something else. The first wave of attackers struck at dawn. Energy beams and missiles rained down. The base shook, alarms screamed, and soldiers scrambled. But Arvalin was ready. She led a small squad to repair the outer defenses, moving swiftly, cutting through debris, fighting off skirmishers. Elias followed close, his rifle steady. "Captain, the shields are failing," a soldier shouted. Arvalin didn't hesitate. "Divert all power to the main generators. We hold this line!" Her voice was clear, a command that gave hope. As the battle raged, Arvalin found herself face to face with a Zereth warrior, one of her own race. Their eyes locked. "You betray us!" the warrior hissed. "I choose my own path," Arvalin replied. The two clashed, energy blades sparking, metal striking metal. Around them, humans and aliens alike fought for survival. Elias arrived just in time, firing a pulse shot that sent the enemy reeling. Together, Arvalin and Elias stood back to back, a human and a Zereth, fighting side by side. Hours passed like this, unceasing, brutal. But the defenders held. When the sun began to set, the Zereth retreated once more. The survivors gathered, exhausted but alive. Arvalin looked at Elias. "You saved my life." He smiled, shaking his head. "We saved each other." For the first time, Arvalin felt something new. Gratitude. Not the duty-bound kind, but real. That night, The soldiers built small fires, sharing stories and laughter. Arvaline sat quietly, watching. Elias joined her. "Do you ever think about home?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "I wonder if I have. One. Maybe home isn't a place," Elias said. "Maybe it's where you belong." She looked at him, the first hint of softness in her eyes. "I don't belong anywhere. You belong here, with us." Her heart ached. She wasn't just a weapon or a queen anymore. She was a person, flawed, broken, and human in a way she never thought possible. The next day brought new challenges. The Zareth commanders sent a message: "Surrender Arvalin, or the base would be destroyed." The humans debated, fear and anger mixing. Arvalin stood before them, voice steady. "I will not be a prisoner again." Elias nodded. "Neither will we." The soldiers prepared for the final stand. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the moon base lit up with energy and determination. Arvalin and Elias stood side by side, ready for what was coming. Together they would fight, not just for survival, but for a future they could believe in. The moon base was quiet. Too quiet. Captain Queen Arvalin stood near the command screen, watching blinking red lights show incoming enemy ships. More Zareth vessels had arrived, bigger, faster, angry. "They've brought their full force," said Sergeant Elias Reed. His voice was calm, but his eyes were hard. "They mean to end this," Arvalin replied. The human soldiers around them worked in silence. They knew what was coming. They had already fought too much. Some of them were wounded, some were tired, but no one ran. They stayed for each other and for her. Arvalin looked at the screen again. Her own people wanted her dead or captured. She had led them in war for years. But now, she wasn't one of them anymore. She wasn't sure what she was. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to do this alone." She turned to him. "Then what should I do?" "Speak." "Speak?" "Talk to them, not as a commander. As yourself." Arvalin paused. The Zareth never listened to emotion. They followed strength, order, obedience. But maybe if they heard her, really heard her, something would change. She stood in front of the wide comm station. Her hands shook slightly as she pressed the button. A blue light blinked. The message would go out to every Zareth ship above the moon. She took a deep breath and spoke. "This is Captain Queen Arvalin. I speak not as a commander, but as a being who has seen the truth." In the control room, everyone stopped to listen. "I was created to fight. I was told that humans were weak, ugly, and unworthy, that they would fall before our might, but I have stood beside them. I have seen their courage. I have seen kindness that my people forgot." Her voice grew stronger. "You say I betrayed the Zareth, but I say I was never truly free until I met the enemy." She looked into the camera. "I do not fight for the Empire anymore. I fight for peace, for choice, for honor, not built by war, but by unity." Outside, the stars seemed to pause. Silence followed. Then a voice came through. "Rough, cold, Zareth. This message is false. She has been corrupted. Destroy her." But another voice, clear and younger, spoke too. "Is it true? Are we wrong about them?" Then another. "She speaks with strength, but not hate. Is that weakness? Or something more?" In space, something unexpected happened. One of the Zareth ships pulled back. Then another. Not all, but enough. Inside the base, hope flickered. Elias looked at her. "You did it." Arvalin didn't smile. She only said, "Not enough. The rest will still attack." And they did. The next wave came like a storm. Zareth warriors dropped from the sky. Heavy ships blasted the base walls. Fire and smoke filled the air. But the humans, now led by a former enemy, did not run. Arvalin fought with speed and grace, defending every hallway, every gate. She knew Zareth tactics. and she used them against her own people. Elias stayed, by her side, his rifle glowing hot. A bomb hit the west wall. The ground shook. A support beam fell. Elias pushed Arvalin out of the way just in time, but the beam struck him in the side. He collapsed with a cry. Arvalin screamed. Something she never did before. She dropped to her knees beside him. Elias, blood on his jacket. His breath was short. "I'm still here," he whispered, forcing a weak smile. She pressed her hand to his wound. "Stay with me." "Don't. Let this be for nothing," he gasped. His hand reached up, touched her face gently. "You were never ugly," he whispered. "You were always beautiful." Then his hand dropped. The room was chaos, alarms, fire, screams. But all Arvalin could hear was silence. The silence of loss. Her body moved on instinct. She stood, picked up Elias's rifle. Then she roared, not like a commander, not like a queen, but like a woman who had lost someone she truly cared for. And the Zireth felt fear. She charged into the enemy ranks, fought like a storm, one soldier against many, but none could stop her. Around her, the human troops rallied. Her fury became their fire. The enemy fell back, confused, broken, and then the rest of the Zireth ships above turned away. Retreat. Hours later, when the fires were out and the sky was clear, Arvalin sat beside Elias's still body in the medbay. He wasn't gone, but he was weak. The doctors worked to save him. She never left his side. She stared at him for a long time, then whispered, "Why did you smile at me? Even when I said I was ugly?" Elias didn't open his eyes, but he smiled, and, for the first time, so did she. The battle was over. Smoke no longer rose from the moon base. The fires had been put out. The weapons were silent. Human and Zireth soldiers now moved side by side, helping each other, healing wounds, and burying the dead. But inside the quiet medical room, Captain Queen Arvalin sat still, watching the human who had changed her world. Sergeant Elias Reed lay in a medical pod, wires attached to his chest, a mask over his mouth. His body was broken, but his heart still beat. Doctors had done everything they could. Now, they waited. Arvalin hadn't left his side. She hadn't slept. She barely ate, but she stayed, because for the first time in her life, someone had looked at her, not with fear or respect or duty, but with care. The door opened softly. An older human officer stepped in. Gray hair, tired eyes, but a kind face. "Captain Arvalin," he said, using her title with respect. "We received a message from a Zireth cruiser. They want to talk. Peace talks." Arvalin looked up. "Why now?" "Because of you," the officer said. "You made them listen." She stood slowly. Her back still ached from the fight, but her voice was steady. "I will speak with them." "But not as a prisoner," the officer added. "As a guest, as a leader." She nodded, but before she left, she turned to Elias and placed her hand gently over his. "Wake up soon," she whispered. "I have more questions, and I want your answers." Outside, the moon base had changed. Where there was once war, now there was rebuilding. Arvalin walked through the halls, and human soldiers nodded to her. Some even smiled. A few Zireth warriors who had stayed behind after refusing to obey. Their empire's final orders stood among them. There was no hate in their eyes now. She was no longer just a queen, or a weapon. She was something new. The peace talks were held through a secure channel. Zireth commanders stared at her through the screen, confused and uncertain. "You were built for war," one of them said. "You were the best of us." "I am still strong," she replied. But strength means more than killing. Another voice snapped, "You will be hunted if you return." "I don't plan to return," she said firmly. "This moon is my home. Now, these people, these humans, are my allies." Silence followed. Then a younger voice spoke. We will consider your words." It wasn't agreement, but it wasn't a threat. It was a beginning. Days passed. Arvalin continued to help rebuild the base. She trained with the soldiers, helped design better defenses, taught the humans about Zireth tactics, and every evening she returned to Elias. She would sit by his bed, speak softly, or simply watch the stars through the window. She remembered everything he had told her. You don't have to be what they made you. Maybe home is where you belong. You were always beautiful. Those words echoed in her every thought. Then, one morning, the doctor entered with a smile. "He's waking up." Arvalin rushed into the room. Elias's eyes were open, blinking, slowly, his face pale, but alive. She leaned over him. "You look worse than before," she said softly. He smiled. "Still handsome, though?" She let out a small laugh. "Not really." He chuckled weakly. "Fair enough." They sat in silence for a while. No need for long words. Then Elias asked, "What happened?" "You almost died," she said. "Saving me." "Would do it again," he whispered. She shook her head. "Foolish." He reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. "I heard your message," he said. "In my dreams." "I meant every word," she replied. "Even when you said you were free?" "Yes." "And beautiful?" She looked at him for a long time. Then she said, "I never believed it, until you made me feel like I could be." His fingers gently squeezed hers. "And now?" She smiled, a soft, real smile. "Now I believe it." Weeks later, the moon base stood tall once again. Flags of peace flew beside weapons of defense. Humans and Zireth worked together, not as enemies, but as survivors. Captain Queen Arvalin no longer wore her battle armor. She wore a simple uniform, created by both sides, a symbol of unity. She stood with Elias on the ridge, watching the stars. "What now?" he asked. "We live," she said. "We build. We teach others what we learned." He smiled at her. "You really changed everything." "No," she replied. "We did." That night, under the stars, the once feared queen sat beside a human soldier, not as a prisoner, not as a stranger, but as an equal. And when she asked again, "Why did you smile when I called myself ugly?" He only smiled again. And this time she didn't ask why, because now she understood.